If I run out of consoles and then buy some more consoles, does that count?
Good luck.
Hey there folks, I'm Scott, we're balls deep in lockdown and it's time to talk about the SNES or Super Nintendo. So the interesting thing about me and the SNES is that I never had one growing up, but we were always a Sega family up until we bought a PlayStation. So my first proper in-depth experience with the Super Nintendo didn't come when the console was released. It came round about the tail end of the 90s to the start of the 2000s via emulation. Now I know there will be some of you out there going, oh, emulation isn't real, it's not accurate, it's not moral. Look, fuck off, alright? I wanted to play some SNES games that I hadn't really had the chance to play before. In fact, that's kind of a lot of the guiding principle behind what I actually do. It's not just about revisiting games that I liked, it's about looking at stuff that I didn't get to play at the time, getting to experience those things that were cut off to me when I was younger. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing like playing on original hardware, which is why I have a SNES now, but for me it's just important that people get to play the games, however you manage to do it, just to get a chance to try them out. So I said earlier that we were a Sega family growing up, which means that for me the Super NES can't exist outside of any context. It's always going to exist in comparison to the Mega Drive, and I love the Mega Drive, I really do. There's some games on that I will replay until the day I die, like say Gunstar Heroes or Streets of Rage 2. But if I'm honest, from that side of things, from a distance, the Super NES was always a console that looked like the future, be it through its Mode 7 graphics or even the Super FX chip or the Super FX 2. There was always, growing up, something mysterious about it, something that looked like it was really the future of gaming before the PlayStation and Saturn came along to introduce, full 3D. One good thing about getting to know a console when you're a little bit older as opposed to having it as a child is that you don't feel compelled or forced to play absolute shite, games that you might have got as a present, or maybe they were the only games you had up until a certain point. No, when the console's been out for a good few years and you've got enough intelligence to quickly Google, you actually have the joy of picking out all the classics to play first and really delve into. And that's kind of what I did with the Super Nintendo. So, without further ado, here are the 5 SNES games that really blew me away. This might be a daft or controversial opinion, but being the biggest game in the world right now, it doesn't feel to me like it's as much of an achievement as it would have been, say, in the early 90s. I know that objectively that's fucking stupid. The amount that Grand Theft Auto or FIFA sells would absolutely dwarf anything that came out in the 16-bit era, but maybe it's because we're more connected, maybe it's because I'm 35 and I actually have my own disposable income. But if something's the biggest game in the world right now, it just feels like it will be the biggest game for a month, a week, a day, before something else comes along. It comes, it goes, it doesn't feel that exciting. There's no denying that when it finally came out for home consoles, Street Fighter 2 was the biggest game in the world. In fact, it was the only game that anybody could talk about for months. It was literally everywhere. Entire magazines dedicated to it. Cartoons, comics, action figures, the works. Street Fighter 2 was a phenomenon. And it wasn't just that it was huge, it had mystery, it had rumours. Nowadays when a game comes out, all of its secrets are laid bare within seconds. Back in the day, before we had the internet in the way that we know it, before we had social media, it took a while to really dig into a game and find out every single little secret it was hiding. Everything from special moves to the rumours of Shenlong were fed to us through magazines that released monthly. And that really spread out the hype, it really spread out the excitement. Like I said, for a long time, Street Fighter 2 was the only game worth talking about. But bringing it back to the Super Nintendo, for a while the SNES was the only place where you could get the biggest game in the world outside of the arcades. Now, obviously later it would come to everything from the Amiga to the Mega Drive to the Master System in Brazil. But imagine being the one guy in your class that had Street Fighter 2. Imagine, oh, imagine the feeling of power. I talked about the SNES having games that looked like the future. FZero definitely looked like the future. It was probably one of the first games that any of us saw that made use of Mode 7 graphics, and, well, frankly, it looked 10 times better than any racing game that we'd seen before. Don't believe me? Okay, let's look at something on a Mega Drive like Road Rash or Skitchin. Both fine games, both decent looking games, but then compare it to FZero. Look at the pseudo 3D viewpoint, look at how fast it is, look at how smooth it is. Like I said, it looked like nothing we had seen before, and it looked like the future. Looks aside, it's also a fantastically tricky bastard of a racer. In particular, the sheer speed and the track design helps passing other cars graduate from mildly irritating to an absolute bastard level challenge. And, much like I said about Ridge Racer 4 on the PlayStation, it's pretty unforgiving. There is not a lot of room for you to fuck up. Now, coming in first is sometimes the absolute least of your worries, because at any given moment you're going to be smacked about like a pinball, or just straight up yeeted off the track. So when I was talking about the Master System in Golden Axe Warrior, I said that I was never really an RPG guy, and truthfully when I downloaded the ROM for Chrono Trigger, I didn't know what the game was, I just thought the name looked really cool. Fast forward 20 years and it remains one of the few RPGs that I've not only played, but played again and will talk about in an excruciating level of detail that makes my wife so bored. Now let's be honest, there's pretty much nothing about this game that isn't fucking phenomenal, from the plot to the art to the music. But it's the battle system that really drew me in and kept me hooked. The genius of the battle system for me is that it's actually fairly easy to grasp what it is you have to do and what everything is, from your attacks to your techniques to your items. But that also makes it complex enough to strategise, to pick what characters you're going to use, what cross techniques you're going to use, and how you're going to approach certain bosses. Compare that with something like Final Fantasy VIII, for example, where every time it introduces a new context, I feel like I've got to sit through a PowerPoint presentation. The accessibility of Chrono Trigger's battle system is what allowed me to enjoy everything else about the game. It let me enjoy every single daft little side mission that would change something else in the future to your benefit. It let me visit a far-flung dystopian future which definitely doesn't resemble the outside world right now. It let me go back in time to kick the fuck out of a dinosaur. It let me visit a floating magical kingdom and then get a square go on the wing of a plane. Whereas it feels like other RPGs, maybe it's just me, but it kind of feels like a chore. I don't know what I can say about Mario Kart apart from the fact that it's quite obviously perfection. It's literally the drinks coaster that I'm using right now. Putting aside the slightly weird concept that everybody in the Mushroom Kingdom put their differences aside for just long enough to race some go-karts, I love the fact that it's a game that actively fucks with you. And that's fine. Think about it. If Mario Kart was just a kart racing game, it'd still be fun, it'd still be well put together, it'd still look amazing, but it wouldn't be half as much fun. Every single track in that game fucks with you in a unique way, and that's part of the fun of playing Mario Kart. Sitting on that starting line going, okay, how's this track gonna fuck with me? And then, when you think you've mastered the ways in which the track's gonna fuck with you, it gives every single racer the tools to fuck with you as well. And they will. And I know it's soul-crushingly frustrating to have first place stolen from you at the last possible second, and there's nothing you can do about it, but if you try and tell me that Mario Kart would be half as fun if you couldn't also do that to other people, then you are a fucking liar. That's the real beauty of Mario Kart. Nintendo, one of the most wholesome, family-friendly companies on earth, made the perfect tool to fuck with people. And look at every single Mario Kart sequel. It's never really strayed from that core formula of winning a race by fucking with people. So I can't really talk about games that looked like the future without mentioning Starwing, or Starfox for all our international friends out there. For most of us, Starfox was the first ever fully 3D game that we ever saw, and on a console where nobody expected it. Now, as the years went on, both the Mega Drive and the SNES would implement 3D in a variety of different ways, but nothing else really had that impact that Starwing had when it first came out. Now, looking back, is it the greatest game? Actually, no, it runs atrociously and it's not always brilliantly clear where you were shooting, but here's the thing, at the time, nobody gave a shit. Between the 3D graphics and the frankly amazing soundtrack, that game blew minds left and right, and deservedly so, because it showed people something they had never seen before. For all that games like FZero might have looked like the future, Starwing was the fucking future. And there it was, in your living room, on your Super Nintendo, today, right now. So there you have it, those are my 5 favourite games for the Super Nintendo, but I have to admit there are still plenty of games for that system that I've not really delved into, so please put your favourite Super Nintendo games in the comments below, and also if you've got a console you want me to take a look at, leave it in the comments as well. Please stay the fuck indoors, please tell me if there's something different I can do with my hair because my head is getting really warm, and I'll see you next week.